there's a lot of small towns and a lot of places to buy and to rent. And if you were looking to buy some place and you had $50,000, you could certainly find a place, many places in Portugal for that.
All right, so today we're heading over to the beautiful, one of my favorite countries in the world, Portugal, with my new friends Matt and Dawn. Matt and Dawn, thanks for doing the podcast.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so I discovered you guys on YouTube because you guys have a YouTube channel called the Unretirees, which I love the name. So let's dive into that first. Give us a little backstory about you two, where you're from, how you landed in Portugal, and tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel on retirees.
Sure. So we spent most of our life in Northern California. I grew up there. Matt lived there for many years, and we became empty nesters. And like a lot of people, we had a big house and a lot of stuff that we just didn't need. We'd always had a dream to live in New York City. I know that you live there as well. And so we sold everything and moved to New York City. And our goal was that we would live there for 2 years and then we would move to Europe, which was also another dream. We ended up staying in New York for almost a decade. As you know, the city is very, just a really great place to live.
It is.
And during the pandemic, we started thinking about, things a little bit differently. And that's when we got serious about researching a place abroad. We thought about France, we thought about Italy, we thought about Spain. But the more that we did research, the more Portugal just kept coming to the top of the list. Every time we research safety or healthcare or climate or any of those things were really important to us, we couldn't deny that Portugal was always at the top of the list. And so we had a plan to retire in 2027. And so we thought, well, we'll buy a house here in Portugal and then one day we'll retire here. And we just decided, you know what? Nothing is promised. We don't know that we're still, you really do. You get here to a point in life, in your life, you just know too many people who have a dream for retirement and never get there. And so we decided, let's just move abroad, work remotely, and travel, because we didn't want to put off our dreams of living abroad and traveling the world. But we also really love our work and we didn't want to give that up either. And so we think this idea of unretirement, which is creating a work life that actually works for your lifestyle instead of the other way around, where you're trying to cram all of your best moments on weekends or 2 weeks of vacation. We wanted to flip that script and show people that you don't have to be a Rockefeller to live this kind of life, that it can be very practical and that there are lots of ways to make it work.
Wow. I love that concept. So brilliant. So you guys, so you're still working a bit and you are living the retirement dream in this beautiful country, Portugal. So tell us, so where did you land in Portugal? And when you first started out, you needed to get a visa. What type of a visa are you guys on?
So we ended up in Nazare, Portugal, Portugal, which is on the Silver Coast, and it's between Lisbon and Porto from north to south, but it's all the way on the west coast. So, we can see the ocean out here out of our window, and
nice.
it's pretty awesome. The visa process is relatively clear. You have certain options. We decided to take the option of a D7 visa, which is the retirement visa. And for a retirement visa, you have to be able to demonstrate a certain level of passive income, as well as a certain amount of assets that you bring over and deposit into a Portugal bank account. So the amount of income tended to be, passive income needed to be somewhere in the ballpark of a couple of $1,000s for both of us combined.
Okay.
And the assets that we needed to bring over was just shy of $30,000 and put it into a Portuguese bank account. That money is still ours, right? It's just sitting in the bank account and we can withdraw it once we're here, but they need to make sure, our understanding was they just need to make sure that would not be a burden to the Portugal economy just by showing up here with nothing. And so the visa process, at least from our sake, as we were in the United States, you set an appointment with the VFS office, which is a third party that collects and manages all the documentation for several countries. And you meet with them, you drop off all of your stuff, which includes proof of income, proof of assets, proof of you need to have health care that would, if something should happen and you move to Portugal, that you can get repatriated back to the United States if it happens within the first 90 days or so.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there were certain things that we needed to do, but the process was relatively clear. We had our meeting with VFS. About 5 months later, we got the approval for our D7, and then we were able to move here. And then within 90 days, you have to meet with the local immigration office here. And then once you do that, you get your residency card, and our card is good for 2 years, and then we can renew it for 3 more years. And then at the end of those 5 years, we actually can apply for citizenship, which of course, an EU citizenship means that you can live, work
Anywhere. Yeah.
in any of the EU countries. So,
Mhm.
so that's an attractive aspect of it for us.
It is. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned, is it VSF or VFS?
VFS,
VFS.
Victor Frank Sally.
And that's in the US that you met with VFS.
Yes. So VFS has offices. There's probably a dozen offices around the US. And depending on the state that you live in, you go to one of those offices for your appointment.
Okay.
Like I said, VFS manages this for, they probably have 15 countries that they manage the paperwork for.
Okay. Do you have to go through them?
You do. In the United States, you can't go through the Portugal consulate. They have offloaded everything to VFS. So VFS collects all the documents. They make sure it's all there. They send it to the Portugal consulate. And then Portugal approves it or denies it. They get it back to VFS, and then VFS tells you. So, and then you give VFS your passport, and then they get it stamped and approved, and then they give it back to you. So we actually never interacted directly with the Portuguese consulate.
I see. Okay. Today's video is sponsored by Lexcity Law. At Adventure Freaks, we highly recommend Lexidy for their comprehensive legal services in immigration, business, real estate, and tax matters when relocating to Portugal. Their friendly and approachable team stands out from your typical law firms, making the entire process smooth and stress-free. All of their lawyers are based in the countries they represent and have up-to-date information on visas and residency. Plus, they speak fluent English, making it easy for English speakers moving abroad. So you can click the link in the description or the QR code up here to get started with Lexcity Law today. Now let's dive back into our podcast. Okay. And then you mentioned that you need to show a minimum income for both of you at 2,000. Does that mean that one person would be just 1,000?
Yeah. So it's the way that it works out is it's the minimum wage for Portugal, which is somewhere in the ballpark of $870 a month. Sorry, 870 euros a month, which is close to $950, $980 a month. So we'll call it 1,000.
Yeah.
And then so that's for one person. Then for two people, it would be just that. If you have kids, it would be 50% of that as well.
Okay.
So of all the countries that we looked at, it was the lowest minimum passive income requirement, but it was also the only country that required that large deposit into a local bank account. So it was, one of the factors that weighed when we were thinking about a country to move to.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So that's another thing. Yeah. Because I noticed that the other close nearby neighbors do not require that deposit into a bank account, but that's okay. So they require, so if it would be just like one person, like just one retiree heading over to Portugal, would they just put 15,000 down, or would they?
No, I think the way it works for the deposits, and I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers offhand, but I think it's almost 20, just a little under 20 for one, and then it's 50% of that to get a second person on there.
Okay, good information. Thank you. So
and again, again, that money is always yours. It's not like you're putting it and it's going away. You just put it in a bank account and then you can spend off of that as you would like to. So
It's also worth noting that that's for a retirement visa. Even though we're still working, we came on a retirement visa. The D8 is the digital nomad visa, and I do not believe they have a deposit requirement.
they do not.
So it's not the only way to go. It just for the type of visa that we wanted, that's what we needed to do.
Yeah, a D8, a digital, excuse me, a D8, a digital nomad visa. It does require a higher income threshold of about $3,300 a month for clients from outside of Portugal, but there is no deposit requirement.
Okay, great information. All
The other
right.
thing I would say is that there's a great Facebook group called Americans and Friends PT, and they have all the documents in a step-by-step plan for navigating all of the paperwork. And so if anyone's thinking about moving to Portugal, we highly recommend that Facebook group.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the visa process, but they have documents and files for how to get your pet over here, how to get a driver's license, the things that you need to do once you land, get utilities and other things hooked up. So it's a very useful group.
Yeah.
Okay, Americans and Friends PT.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, PT. Okay, Paul and Tom.
Yes.
All right, great. I'm going to join today.
Good.
Great.
All right, so you guys actually, you went over there, and did you rent anything first, or did you just go and scout and find and scout properties and eventually buy before moving over there?
Yeah, our original plan was, as I mentioned, to retire and move in 2027, but the rates were very low. We got a phenomenal exchange rate, and we knew that prices were only going to continue to go up here on the Silver Coast. And so we decided that it was smartest to buy a property now, even though we wouldn't be able to move until 2027.
Mhm.
We ended up moving a lot earlier, but that was the original thought.
Okay. Give us an idea for somebody who wants to move over there. And you guys are in Nazaré, is about an hour and a half, you said, outside of
About
Lisbon.
an hour 15 north of Lisbon.
Okay. And you're on the coast.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
give us an idea if a retiree is interested in living along that coast, what they would pay for a rental. And then let's talk about what can you find. What are homes and I don't know if they have townhomes or condos over there. What are they going for currently if you wanted to purchase one?
Yeah. So look, there's a wide range in any town, including a wide range in Nazaré. So in terms of rent for a 1-bedroom place, it would probably be, would you guess, about $700? Sorry, €700.
Yeah, we have a rental unit that's 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and the going rate for that one is 900. That's the market rate.
Right.
And that's with
Okay.
a view of the ocean. Yeah.
That's a 3-bedroom, you said?
Yeah.
3-bedroom, 1 bath. Yeah.
Okay.
So you could certainly find a place for probably $500 or €500. You could certainly spend well more than $1,000 for or €1,000 for rent, depending on what you were looking for. But again, that sort of is the central point. In terms of buying a place, it's a little bit, obviously prices have gone up, not just in the United States, but they've gone up here in Portugal as well. It's going to depend on, like, there's a new build just down the street for a 3-bedroom condo, which is going for $480. But that's a brand new, all out condo.
Yeah.
Wow.
On the other hand, you can get here in Nazaré, you can get a condo for probably, what would you say, 100?
I would say closer to 200 now, but yeah.
Yeah, closer to
for sure.
200 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you could go just a little bit inland and prices go way, way down. So yeah, just 5 to 10 miles inland and you'll get a much better deal.
So that is true. I mean, Nazaré is it's a desirable place because it's coastal and because of the fact that the weather here is much cooler than it is in a lot of other parts of Portugal. But yeah, certainly if you were to go in, it becomes, I mean, there's a lot of small towns and a lot of places to buy and to rent. And if you are looking if you were looking to buy some place and you had $50,000, you could certainly find a place, many places in Portugal for that.
There's a place just about 30 minutes south of us called Caldas Serena. It's on the Obidos Lagoon, and that is very, very popular with retirees because that's where all the golf courses on the Silver Coast are. There's fishing, there's kiteboarding, all of the things, and you could probably, in Caldas Serena, you could probably get something less expensive than here in Nazaré. And then there's, of course, as Matt said, a wide range around the golf courses. But that's really the area that tends to attract a lot of retirees just because there's so much to see and do there.
Yeah. So are there any towns like that are starting to develop and build up like really quaint, beautiful towns? Like if you think, I don't know, because I like in Italy, they're all over the place. Even these towns that are just, depopulated and they're trying to repopulate, they are gorgeous. I mean, the architecture is beautiful. They have like these piazzas and these views, and there's so many of them. There's thousands of these towns in Italy that are just stunningly beautiful. Does Portugal have that? Like if you go 5-10 miles in, are there any of these towns like, wow, this is really incredible. This would be an interesting place to live. And things are really affordable here. Are there anything like that that comes to mind?
I think along the coast, this is getting built up and there's new construction happening. I mean, you see cranes all up and down the Silver Coast, and I'm sure all over Portugal. I think some of our favorite, we love being at the beach, but Central Portugal is probably more of what you are talking about. There are some really phenomenal places in Central Portugal and a little bit northern that we think are incredible that don't really seem to be on the radar quite as much. I'm going to embarrass myself trying to pronounce this name, but up north there's Guimarães, which is a fantastic, beautiful town.
Marvão
Is another, beautiful one that's close to the Spain border.
Right. So, and there's many towns that are sort of like in Italy where they're old towns where there's walls that have been built around the town, and then they, from hundreds of years ago, and those towns still exist, and people still live there, and there's homes and things like that turn over, and those are just really quaint and incredibly beautiful towns. And so Tomar, Marvão, Guimarães is an example, and of course there's then homes outside of those things. But I mean, Portugal has, I don't know what the count is, but the number of old sort of, whether it's walled cities, is just huge because, generations ago, right? You had the Knights of the Templar who would have their places in various parts within Portugal as well as in Spain, and they built up these towns as forts, and these towns still exist and they still are used. So it's actually it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing place to live, and it's an amazing place to experience. And that's just something that we really don't have, that kind of rich history in the US, Let's dive into, people are always interested in utilities and what you would pay approximately per month for utilities out there, and Wi-Fi, cell phone.
A lot of that's going to depend on where you live and how you live and what your building is manufactured with, right? So for us, we're in a home that, although it's been remodeled, it still uses some of the older fashioned ways that they have built things. So it's not particularly efficient, and we're also sort of a single family, so we've got open walls all the way around. Anyway, all that to say is we probably spend a lot more in utilities than other people would. In the summer, we don't have to run air conditioning because it's very cool where we are. The summer rate is going to be probably somewhere south of 100 euros, probably like 80 euros or so.
Okay.
That's without working hard, right? But in the winter, we have to run dehumidifiers because it gets damp if you have things shut up. It gets damp, so we have to run dehumidifiers, and then we have electric wall heaters. And so when you have all of those things going, that can be, a little more than 200 euro a month.
Okay.
So not cheap. However, if you were in an apartment where there was somebody above you, somebody below you, and somebody on two sides of you, you could easily probably see your utilities be under 50 euro a month.
Mhm.
So it's just, I think a lot of it depends on how that building is, where you are in a building like that.
So there's a period of a time per year where you're paying 200 a month, and then there's another time where you're paying 80. Would you say
Right.
that that averages out to about 100, 120 per month?
Yeah, it's probably half and half of the year. Yeah. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's right.
So let's say I say about 100. Now, does that include electric, gas, water, Wi-Fi, and cell?
So, yeah, so water is inexpensive. We do pay extra for water. It's about 20 euro a month for water.
Okay.
Uh, and we do not have gas here. So everything
Okay.
is electric. When I say that, we personally don't have gas here. Other people have gas here in Portugal. We just don't have it.
Hmm. And how large is your place?
It's
It's about 1,000 square feet,
So it's a good sized place. Is that a two,
yeah,
3 bedroom?
3 bedroom.
3 bedroom. Okay. So if somebody were renting a 1 bedroom, then that could drop the prices as well,
sure,
the cost of
sure.
Yeah.
utilities. Okay.
The energy rating is really important to pay attention to if you're looking to rent or buy here, because the way that the houses are constructed, they are very cold in the wintertime. And we heard people say that when we were researching, and we were like, we live in the Northeast, we know what cold is, we're not worried about it. Trust me, it gets cold.
Mhm.
And so those energy ratings, I think ours is C. If you find something with an A or a B and it's a little bit more expensive, our advice would be to pay for that, because you will either pay it in higher rents or you're going to pay it in higher utilities. And that comfort level during the winter when it gets really cold here because of the cinder block construction, I think is a benefit to have.
So when you say energy rating, are you saying that when you're looking to rent, they show you an energy rating for the particular rental?
They do. You can ask. They may not show it, but you can ask. And certainly when you're buying a place, if you were to buy a place, they're obligated to tell you what the energy rating is. And it
Okay.
does run from A, which is the most efficient, to E, which is the least efficient.
I see. Okay.
So generally speaking, if you were to be in a newer build, something that was built where they're going to have already double pane windows, and they're going to probably have some form of insulation
Hmm.
between the outside world and your walls, it's probably going to be an A or a B rated thing.
Sure. And then if you're like me, who likes the really old school 500-year-old historic farmhouse, then it's going to be a Z.
Yeah.
It could be. Look, there are things that you could do to make it, work. But yeah, if you were to walk in, they're not particularly energy efficient at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, good information. Okay, so let's how are groceries? You guys coming from California, and they've really spiked here in the States. They've spiked all over the world. But what are they more affordable, would you say, over there in Portugal? And what do you think you two budget per month on groceries?
Well, our experience is that it's about 50% of the cost here, as it would have been in the United States. And the same is true for restaurants as well. That going out for a roughly equivalent meal is roughly 50% of the cost that you would experience in the United States.
Okay.
And I'm talking about, obviously, we were in the Northeast and then in
Yes.
California, or California in the Northeast. So, it's probably different if you were talking about the middle of the country, but it certainly is much more affordable. We probably, what would you guess from a budget?
Like, I don't know, 70 a week, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Yeah.
One of the things, because we are still working, and in order to continue to work, we ended up having to set up a Portuguese corporation, and we're independent contractors for the jobs that we had.
Hmm.
Uh, and but one of the benefits of that is that each employee gets what they call a meal credit. And so basically you get $200 a month of tax-free money to spend on food through your company. And that would be true of any employee in Portugal for any company, that they get a meal credit,
Hmm.
which is sort of an interesting thing. So there are some months where we will spend more than that, but most months we don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
That leads me into like I know that some of these countries with the retirement visas in Europe, they don't allow you to work.
Yeah, so that's not true here. So
Okay.
you can come in on a D7, a retirement visa, and you need to demonstrate that you don't need to work, right?
Right.
But once you're here as a resident of Portugal, you can create your own job. You can become a freelancer. You can go and work for a shop or a store in town. That's all perfectly fine.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not an issue.
Let's dive into transportation. How do you guys get around? Is there a public transportation um, system in Nazaré, or did you guys purchase a vehicle?
So the answer to both is yes. So we did purchase a vehicle, and part of that is because of what we do on YouTube. We need to be able to travel all over Portugal and film all over Portugal. But there is a bus service that runs in Nazaré and around Nazaré, and then there's a bus service that runs to uh, towns nearby, including you can take a bus, and we've done this, taking a bus to Lisbon or taking a bus to Porto. And it's very convenient and very inexpensive. I mean, I think it's less than, like to go to Lisbon was far less than 10 euro
Mhm.
to get to Lisbon, which honestly, here in Portugal, you would spend more than 10 euro just in tolls to get to Lisbon.
I
Yeah.
So,
think, yeah, I think something that's important to note, and it's unique to Nazare, and one of the reasons that we were so attracted to this place is that it's walkable. You can walk just about anywhere you need to go in
Mm.
Nazare, and there's a tram that connects Upper Nazare and Lower Nazare, and especially after living in New York for so many years, we just really wanted the freedom to be able to walk to dinner or walk to the store. And so that is something that's unique about Nazare, and we take advantage of that for sure.
yeah, that's right.
Mhm. You guys have a lot of choices as far as like restaurants and cafes.
We do. One of the things about Nazaré is it's a very popular tourist spot, certainly among Europeans and specifically around Portuguese people for the summer, as well as then internationally in the winter during the big wave season. I don't know if you're familiar with the documentary, The 100-Foot Wave, but the 100-Foot Wave documentary is really about surfers here in Nazaré,
Big wave
Mhm.
big wave surfers in Nazaré. And so in the winter, that's really the big wave season. And so we'll get tourists in the winter as well for that. The the what that means though is that there's a lot of services that have been created in order to satisfy these large tourist bumps. And so here in Nazaré, which is about 15,000 people, there's more than 100 restaurants. And so we don't suffer from a shortage of restaurant choices here for sure.
Mhm. Nice. That sounds great. What do you guys think a person would have to budget per month to get around Nazaré? It sounds like you can walk mostly everywhere, so you'd probably have to take the bus occasionally. But what do you guys think? And then I'm interested in learning what like a ma and pa meal would cost over there.
The bus here runs about euro 75 to take the bus. You also, as Don mentioned, there's a tram and a sensor, what they call here, an ascensor that runs between Nazaré is divided into an upper Nazaré and a lower Nazaré. And there's a tram that runs between them, which if you're a resident, you can get that for 28 euro a month and ride it as many times as you want to. Otherwise, it's $4 or 4 euros for a round trip. Um, but the so it all depends on but you probably if you're not taking the ascensor, you could probably easily do 20 euro a month. If you're taking the ascensor as part of a routine that you need, then that's 28 euro that you'd have to do on top of that. But
20 to
again,
28.
people aren't taking the bus. Most people anywhere in Nazaré, you could pretty much walk to.
Yeah. Okay, great. So my favorite part is talking about food. It's getting close to lunchtime. So so that's one of the things that I love about Europe and Portugal is the food. The food is fresh. It's phenomenal. I what describe what a local Portuguese dish is. What can, in a ma and pa restaurant, local kind of a place. What are you going to pay per meal?
So, well, one of the things, of course, Portugal is known for is sardines, especially in the summer. And so So if you were to go to a restaurant and order the sardine dish, it's sort of interesting, but they'll give you 3 whole sardines that they've just fried. They're whole, heads, tails, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And on a bed of rice.
Mhm.
And that may cost €8 for that. And it's, if you're a sardine person, it's spectacular.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it is, I'd say at the mom and pop places, you could spend as little as 4 or 5 or €6, depending on what you're getting to more than that. There are very nice restaurants here in Nazaré where you could spend for 2 people. I'll say this, for 2 people, it's tough to spend €100.
Mm-hmm.
I think when the most we've ever spent was at the fanciest restaurant here, and I think it was 88, and that was appetizers and bottle of wine and a main
Wow.
course and a dessert, right? So
At the best restaurant in town.
at the most expensive restaurant in town. So it's but most of the places are not that, obviously, and so there's you can certainly. Well, one of the things, like for lunch, one of the things that is very popular in Portugal is a sandwich called a bifana, which is a pork sandwich that is slow roasted in wine and beer and other spices overnight, and then they put it on a roll, and you put beer mustard into it, and it's like a traditional lunch thing here in Portugal, and it's like you can get them for 2.5, right? So it's quite inexpensive. Now I'll say this: the average salary here in Portugal for a Portuguese person is quite low.
Yeah.
So it's inexpensive to us from a context of coming from the United States and coming with some salary and some money from the US. For people who are born and raised in Portugal, again, I think the minimum wage here is only €870 a month, which is quite low. Portugal has the lowest average salary from any Western European country. And so, food costs and other costs are all relative to income.
Yeah, we're coming from the perspective of Jersey Mike's, which was like $12 a sandwich.
Right.
So that's the
right.
That's
But,
the
So it's
point,
called a bufano.
yeah.
Bifana, Bifana.
Okay, bifana. Okay.
Very popular in Lisbon as well.
And they're like $2.50, you said?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they're very
Okay.
good.
Yeah, they sound good the way you described it.
Yeah.
If they're,
Mhm.
yeah, that sounds delicious. Okay. And what do you guys do for things to do around town? So you guys are Northern California people, so and then look at you, you're back in another surfing territory. Does Dawn get on the surfboard? What's going on over there?
So I am a big wave surfer. No,
Are
I'm
you?
just kidding. I'm not. But one of our motivations for moving to the Silver Coast is that we wanted to be outside most of the year. We wanted to be going on coastal trails. We wanted to be going on hikes. We wanted to be exploring and just to have an outdoor lifestyle most of the year, especially coming from California. We were really used to that, even though we didn't live right on the coast. And so I would say that for us, the best, coming from New York, you're not going to have big Broadway shows here in Nazaré.
Right.
And so it's a different kind of speed, a different kind of lifestyle, but we love all of the outdoor. I mean, it's just miles and miles and miles of hiking and biking trails. There's miles and miles of uncrowded beaches. We've gone on hikes for 3 hours and maybe seen one other couple. Everything is just so uncrowded, so wide open. And so whenever we can, whether it's, tonight we have a beautiful day, we're going to head down and walk the beach during sunset, or if it's, hiking up to an old church, a little bit further down the coast. We just love getting outside, and that is far and away, I would say, I don't know, is it our top thing about living on the Silver Coast? It's pretty close.
I think so.
Number one.
Yeah, the natural beauty here is it's incredible. And of course, if you like, we lived in California, the natural beauty of the California coast is incredible as well. And this is very much like the beautiful California coast in terms of it's just stunning. And Uh, and there's many times where we will just go and walk to the beach from here, or we'll drive to another beach and walk on that beach, or drive to walk on a coastal trail. And it's like, it's hard to believe that it is just so stunningly beautiful. It's just hard to believe.
It really is stunning. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. It takes our breath away all the time, and we just feel so fortunate to be able to live here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, I tell people and my son all the time, it's he's been to the beach here, he's been to the ocean in North Carolina and Virginia, New York, but I'll tell you, you get to the coastline in Europe, especially Portugal, Italy, Spain, France, it'll blow you away. And if you get to the islands of Greece, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's really jaw-dropping. So, okay, that's all. So most of the things that you do are pretty much free. You guys are into
Yes.
hiking and strolling on the beach and just really taking in the awe-inspiring environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really a nice change from living in New York, where it feels like every time you stepped outside, it was, cha-ching, 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 which
Yeah.
is great. We loved our time in New York, and I know that you know exactly what I mean,
Yes.
because you live there. But just to be able to go and explore and all of it without, like you said, it's all free and it's
Yeah.
stunning is really a gift.
All right. Well, great. So the last thing I cover is healthcare. What can you guys share about the healthcare system in Portugal? Is it a public healthcare system? Is it free? If it is, how do you get onto it? And if not, what do retirees have to do?
So when you become or when you apply for your visa, you need to have private health care that at least goes through a year. So that may cost, like for us, it cost a little under 400 euro a month. But once you're here, you can actually cancel that insurance and just be part of the public healthcare system if you are officially a resident of Portugal. So once you become officially a resident of Portugal, the public healthcare system is available to you. And so, your ease of access to it is you just walk in and they'll treat you should there be something that's going on. Now, for us, we've still decided to keep our private healthcare. So it just is an additional thing that we have. So it opens up more doctors and more hospitals for us for whatever it is that we may need. So we decided to keep that. But the Portugal healthcare system is rated number 23 in the world, which is it's tied with the US for that.
We will say that there is something that we did that was an absolute game changer for us, and that is that we hired a medical concierge. And so that's a company called Serenity. And so what they do is that they navigate the healthcare system for us. When we need an appointment, they find us a doctor, they find us somebody who takes our insurance, they'll find somebody who speaks English. And so that has been so helpful and something that we would really highly recommend to anybody coming over, because it makes navigating healthcare in a country where you're not yet fluent in the language so much easier, and they're just great. And how much do we pay for that a month?
So, you pay for a one-time fee for 1 year, which was $400. So it's a little bit under, basically $35 a month if you were to break it out, and that's for two people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would also work with you if all you had was the public healthcare system. So they would help you navigate as a person who may be unfamiliar with the healthcare system here or unfamiliar with medical terms in Portuguese, right? They'll help you navigate that system.
And what is the private healthcare cost for you too?
A little under 400 euro a month.
Okay. And that's for both of you.
That is for both of us.
So when we lived in the States, we paid, I think, $800 a month, and that was for a company sponsored plan. So just to illustrate how much more affordable it is.
Well,
here.
and that's what we paid for yours because the company paid for mine.
Right.
So it was, would have been closer to $1,600 a month for the two of us if we were paying for it.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal price for both of you. Do you know that if you're, so if you're paying 400, would it be only 200 for an individual?
Yeah,
Do you know?
it would. Yeah,
it would be. Well, Matt and Dawn, Thank you so much. The Unretirees. Thank you so much for doing the podcast. I truly appreciate it and sharing all of this information.
Well, thanks, Ray.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys have a good rest of your evening, and I'm going to go eat lunch.
There you go. Sounds like a plan.